We were at the Grammys one time, and some people walked up to me and said, "Hey, do you know Kendrick Lamar?" I said, "I never heard of him."
Right.
And he had a couple of albums out, so he was a star then, but I had never heard of him. And
You stop what you doing right now, because we got exclusive tea that's got the entire music game shook to its core. When Ronald Isley, yes, Mr. Biggs himself, sits down and says that Kendrick Lamar did something in the studio that left him speechless. You know it's deeper than rap. I mean, we talkin' decades of legends, and Ronald done been in rooms with Marvin Gaye, Whitney, Pac, and even R. Kelly. So what did Kendrick possibly do to leave him stunned? Now, rumors been floatin' all week, and insiders been whisperin' about a private session between the Isley brothers and Kendrick out in Malibu. Folks thought it was just a regular collab, but nah, this was spiritual, emotional, and according to Mr. Biggs himself, something I've never experienced in my entire career. Eyes and hear, where it gets wild, y'all. Allegedly, Kendrick ain't just laid down a verse. He brought up deep family secrets, had Ronald cryin' in the booth, and said something that made the entire room go silent. Word is, somebody walked out the studio. A fight almost broke out. Phones got taken. Even Ernie Isley reportedly told someone, "Turn the cameras off." Like what? So how did Kendrick get access to info about Ronald's private past? Did someone close to the Isley family set this up? And is this all connected to the mysterious missing tracks that surfaced online last week with no credit? But Kendrick's unmistakable voice? This ain't no regular collab, fam. This is a revelation. Get ready to dive deep into the drama, the betrayal, and the moment that left one of R&B's biggest legends shocked by a rap prophet from Compton. Grab your snacks, charge your phone, and buckle up. We bout to get into the most unexpected crossover in music history. It all started on a quiet Wednesday evening in Malibu. No paparazzi, no fans, no press. Just an exclusive studio session so secret, folks who were there had to sign 3 separate NDAs before even walking through the door. We talkin' about that kind of private. The kind where the security guards don't speak, the cameras are all covered, and the air smells like money, legacy, and unfinished business. Inside the legendary Westlake Studios, where Michael Jackson recorded Thriller, a strange tension filled the room. Ronald Isley, dressed in his signature fedora, dark shades, and custom-tailored suit, sat in silence on the vintage red velvet couch. Ernie Isley stood off to the side, guitar in hand, eyes flicking toward the door every couple of seconds. Their longtime engineer, known only as DJ Lush, was pacing near the console, whispering to an assistant. The room was too quiet. Something was off. And then he walked in. Kendrick Lamar. Hoodie up, head down, headphones around his neck, followed by 2 people nobody could identify, one of them carrying a dusty leather-bound book, the other with a hard drive in hand. Kendrick barely said a word. Just a nod to Ronald, a dap to Ernie, and then he pulled out a chair, sat in the corner like he'd been there before. But here's the thing, Ronald never invited Kendrick. Not directly. The invitation, sources say, came from someone close to the Isley circle. And that's when people started whispering about Monique. Monique Isley, Ronald's niece by marriage, had been managing some of the Isley brothers' unreleased catalog for the last 5 years. Real low-key, real behind the scenes. But folks in the industry knew she had a soft spot for conscious rappers. She had once told a friend, Kendrick, "He ain't just a rapper, he's a vessel." Whatever that meant, it suddenly became clear that this session wasn't about music. It was about truth. Now, from what we've been told, the session started off cool. Kendrick played a couple beats, nothing crazy, just soulful loops, heavy bass, and haunting keys. Ronald vibed. He even hummed a few melodies, nodded, and said, "You cookin', young blood." But Kendrick didn't smile. He didn't crack. He just looked Ronald in the eye and said, "I got a story to tell, and you in it." That's when it happened. Kendrick reached into his bag and pulled out a manila folder. Inside, handwritten letters, dated, personal, some with Ronald's name on them, others with names that hadn't been heard in decades. One letter, according to a source, was signed by Ronald's late brother, O'Kelly Isley. And when Kendrick read it aloud, Ronald went pale. Like ghost pale, the room froze. Kendrick said, "This ain't just art, OG. This is blood. This is legacy. You ready to speak on it, or should I?" Ronald stood up. Ernie stepped between them, not in a threatening way, more like a barrier. But Kendrick didn't flinch. He stayed seated calm, as if he knew something they didn't, as if he'd been waiting for this confrontation. "You don't know what you think you know," Ronald said, voice shaking but low. Kendrick replied, "I know enough to ask the right questions." Allegedly, what followed was a 3-hour private conversation that no one but Ronald, Kendrick, and Ernie were allowed to hear. DJ Lush was told to turn off all mics. Everyone else had to leave the room. Some say Kendrick cried. Others say Ronald broke down and confessed things that hadn't been spoken since 1985. What we do know is that, when the doors reopened, the energy had shifted. Ronald walked out first, removed his sunglasses, and wiped his eyes. "That boy different," he muttered. "He brought something out of me I ain't even know I still had." Word spread fast. One assistant texted someone at TDE, who then DM'd a major blogger, and within 2 hours, whispers of Ronald Isley x Kendrick Lamar studio confession were trending in underground forums. But here's the real kicker. 3 days later, a mysterious track leaked on SoundCloud under the name Bloodline Confessions. The voice was unmistakable, Ronald's intro over soft strings, followed by Kendrick spittin' bars that sounded less like rap and more like a family intervention. Lines like, "You was preachin' love, but leavin' babies in the dark, I found letters in a drawer, now I'm tearing it apart." Fans were shocked. Nobody knew what the track was tied to. It got pulled down in less than 2 hours, but not before snippets made it to Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. One user claimed the song referenced a half-brother Ronald never met. Another said Kendrick mentioned a hidden will. Nobody could verify it, but theories spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, Monique Isley vanished from social media. Her IG wiped, her Twitter gone. Some say she flew to Atlanta the next day. Others say Ronald cut ties with her, accusing her of betraying family trust. But nobody knew for sure, because Ronald wasn't talking, until he did. In a rare, surprise appearance on The Breakfast Club, Ronald finally addressed the elephant in the room. Charlamagne leaned in and asked, "What really happened with you and Kendrick, man?" That studio session got the streets buzzin'. Ronald sighed, took a deep breath, and looked directly into the camera. That boy, he came in with something real. Not gossip, not rumors, receipts. Letters I hadn't seen in 40 years. Talkin' 'bout things I buried with my own brother. He wanted truth, not music. But what we made, it's both. Charlamagne tried to press for details, but Ronald wouldn't budge. All I'll say is, sometimes the youngest in the room can see the cracks better than the ones who built the walls. Boom, mic drop, but it didn't end there. In the weeks following the interview, fans began connecting dots. A woman named Denise Holloway posted on Facebook that her mother had once dated Ronald Isley in the late 70s and had a child she wasn't allowed to speak of. That post deleted in 24 hours, but screenshots lived on. Then another man, Jamal Reynolds from Detroit, posted a video saying, "I think Kendrick just found out he's my cousin," through Ronald. His video went viral, racking up 3 million views in a weekend before it was mysteriously taken down. Now people started questioning, was Kendrick digging into his own family tree? Was this session not just about music history, but personal history? Insiders close to Kendrick said he'd been doing deep ancestral research for months, hiring genealogists, digging into church records, hospital files, even old tour paperwork. He wasn't just looking for inspiration. He was looking for truth. And the truth, y'all, it's messy. One source, who asked to remain anonymous, claimed Kendrick discovered a connection to someone in the Isley lineage through a woman named Clara Jean, reportedly an early Isley family friend and rumored mistress. Clara Jean's name allegedly popped up in the liner notes of an unreleased Isley Brothers demo from 1982, handwritten by O'Kelly. That same name appeared in a poem Kendrick posted, and then deleted on his private IG months earlier. The internet caught that real quick. By this point, the buzz had gone from rumor to full-blown conspiracy. Reddit threads exploded. TikTok detectives started cross-referencing names. One fan even mapped out a family tree chart based on clues from Kendrick's lyrics over the past 3 albums. It was deep, obsessive, but also kinda convincing. And through it all, Ronald stayed quiet. Until one night, during a private concert in New Orleans, he took the mic in between songs and said, Sometimes the truth don't come in a press release. Sometimes it come in the form of a 30-year-old kid from Compton, with fire in his voice and God in his pen. The crowd went silent, the band played on, and Kendrick, he still hasn't said a word, not a tweet, not a post, not even a verse. But what he did leave behind in that Malibu studio, according to every witness, was something deeper than just a track. He left behind a reckoning, a storm of emotions, a man forced to confront his past, a family divided, and a music world waiting. And y'all, we just getting started. What happened next could only be described as a full-blown ripple effect, tearing through the Isley family tree like a late-night thunderstorm with no warning. The drama didn't stay confined to Malibu. It didn't stay in the booth or even in the studio walls. It leaked fast, and not just in the way music leaks. No, this was a spiritual leak. This was generational wounds breaking through like they'd been waiting for decades to finally speak. Ernie Isley, the ever-quiet, always composed brother, broke his silence on a late-night Instagram live, something nobody saw coming. Sitting in a dark room, barely lit by a lava lamp in the background, he sipped tea from a mug that read "Truth Don't Expire," and gave the fans more than they were ready for. "I love my brother, always have," Ernie began, voice calm but heavy. "But sometimes, the past don't stay in the past. Sometimes it come back, wearing a hoodie, holding a mic, and speaking in rhyme." That was enough to send fans spiraling. Comments flew. "He talkin' 'bout Kendrick, fire, fire, fire. Isley fam got skeletons flushed face. Somebody check on Mr. Big's FR." But then, Ernie said the line that broke the internet. What Kendrick brought into that room wasn't a diss. It was a mirror. Boom. It wasn't long before family members started coming out of the woodwork. An alleged second cousin from Ohio named Tracy, Isley went on TikTok claiming she'd been holding on to a voicemail from Ronald's ex-girlfriend for 10 years that mentioned a boy out west who might be family. She played the voicemail. "I don't want no drama, but he got the same eyes as Ronald, and I ain't stupid." The clip hit 1.7 million views in 4 hours. Then there was Tanya, Ronald's goddaughter and a former backup singer for the Isley Brothers in the early 2000s, who hopped on Facebook Live and said she always knew something was weird about a young man who used to show up at shows in L.A., claiming to be a spiritual son of the Isley movement. "You don't just say that unless you know something. And Kendrick, he been knew," she said. "Now let's talk about the fans. 'Cause y'all know the fans don't sleep." The Kendrick stans and the Isley truthers formed a whole new fandom called the Bloodline. They created timelines, dug up old interviews, found cryptic messages in Kendrick's Damn and Mr. Morale albums. One Reddit user posted an analysis claiming Kendrick had been preparing this confrontation since 2018 and pointed to his Grammy performance where he said, "This is a spiritual war," before going silent for 5 seconds. A silence the user claimed was symbolic of the 5 letters in Isley. People were going deep. Meanwhile, rumors swirled that Ronald had canceled a scheduled press shoot for a Netflix documentary on the Isley brothers' legacy. Why? Because Netflix allegedly wanted to include the Kendrick story, and Ronald wasn't ready. Then, just when the internet thought it had hit peak drama, Kendrick's father stepped into the chat. That's right. Kenneth Duckworth SR, notoriously private and barely ever seen in public, posted a cryptic message on his burner Twitter account. Yes, people figured it out, it's real. You can't bury truth beneath harmony. Eventually, the beat drops. That tweet alone caused mass confusion. What did he mean? Was he confirming a deeper connection between Kendrick and the Isleys? Some fans speculated that maybe Kendrick's father had once crossed paths with the Isley family back in the day, either through the music biz or personal dealings. Old heads in Compton started whispering that Kenneth used to DJ house parties where the Isley brothers' crew would hang in the late 70s. Maybe the two families weren't as disconnected as everyone thought. The theories were endless. But the emotion? That was real. You see, this wasn't just tabloid messiness. This was legacy warfare. This was the sound of 2 generations clashing, one rooted in classic R&B royalty, silk suits, and smooth harmonies. The other grounded in modern truth-telling, bar-for-bar honesty, and raw emotional excavation. And caught in the middle, Kendrick, the lightning rod, the truth-teller, the accidental family therapist with a mic. Sources close to the Isley camp say Ronald hasn't slept right since that night in the studio. One assistant was overheard telling someone at Apple Music that Ronald has been replaying Kendrick's voice in his head every morning, especially the part where Kendrick allegedly said, "You told the world to choosy lover, but what about the ones you ain't choose?" That line, devastating. Even diehard Isley fans started questioning the image they had of Mr. Biggs. Was it just smoke and mirrors? Was there a whole era of secrets swept under the rug to keep up appearances? But Ronald, to his credit, didn't run. 2 weeks after the leak of Bloodline Confessions, he dropped a surprise single called Legacy Ain't Linear, exclusively on Tidal. Produced by Thundercat and Raphael Saadiq, the track was more confessional than anyone expected. Ronald didn't name names, but the message was clear. Sometimes the ones we love the most / hold mirrors we ain't ready to see. He even sang a haunting refrain, "I heard the voice of my father in the pen of a child." That's when fans knew this wasn't beef. This was growth. This was healing. But don't get it twisted, not everyone was ready to forgive. Monique Isley, who still hadn't spoken publicly, was spotted leaving a lawyer's office in Pasadena just days after the song dropped. Whispers began circulating that she was preparing to release a memoir, or worse, a documentary. Titled The Hidden Tracks, My Life in the Isley Shadow, the project was allegedly pitched to Hulu, with some speculating it would include studio footage of the Kendrick session. Ronald reportedly blocked the deal. A cease and desist may have been sent. Monique went dark again. Now here's where it gets crazy. Someone from Kendrick's camp leaked that he had been offered the role of executive producer on a new film exploring the lives of fathers who leave musical legacies but emotional absences. The project, tentatively titled Echoes of Silence, was reportedly based on real-life stories and inspired by Kendrick's own revelations. Ronald was said to be offended and refused to comment. Meanwhile, Kendrick remained quiet, but silence is never just silence with Kendrick. A mysterious billboard popped up in LA. It was black with white letters, no artist name, no logo, just the words, "Blood don't lie. Music just makes it louder." Yup, Kendrick's style all over it. It was placed right off Crenshaw and Slauson, the heart of Kendrick's stomping grounds. Fans flocked to it, some prayed beneath it. Others just stood there, taking in the weight of everything. And then, as if the universe knew we needed one more twist, TMZ posted blurry footage of Ronald and Kendrick seen hugging outside a jazz club in New York. The internet went insane. Were they making peace? Planning another track? Or just caught in a moment of raw vulnerability? One thing's for sure, whatever happened in that studio didn't end that night. It started something. Something that changed how we see legends. Something that changed how we talk about legacy, silence, and secrets in Black families. Something that made fans realize music isn't always just about beats and bars. Sometimes it's about healing through harmony and the uncomfortable process of facing what you once tried to bury. Because at the end of the day, Kendrick didn't come for Ronald. He came for the truth. And in doing so, he reminded us all, no matter how many hits you make, no matter how deep your catalog goes, the real legacy is what you leave behind in people's hearts. And this story ain't even close to finished. The energy in the industry shifted. You could feel it in the way artists started talking in interviews, in the tension behind social media captions, and even in the subtle way certain producers began referencing the Kendrick-Kylie incident like it was a historical moment. And maybe it was. 'Cause by this point, it wasn't just music anymore. It was generational therapy wrapped in 808s and vinyl soul. You had OGs in the game choosing sides. Some defended Ronald, saying the past was the past, and Kendrick had no right to dig up family matters that weren't his business. Others applauded Kendrick, praising him for having the courage to speak uncomfortable truths that too many icons keep buried for the sake of image. And then Snoop Dogg spoke. He hit up IG Live from his car, blunt lit, windows down, Luther Vandross playing low in the background. Fans piled into the live like roaches to a flame. Everybody was waiting for him to weigh in, 'cause Snoop is one of the few who walks between generations like he owns the bridge. "Look, I ain't gone, sit here and act like I know all the ins and outs," Snoop said, exhaling smoke slowly. "But what I do know is this. Kendrick got that spirit in him, that revolutionary spirit. He ain't just mackin' records, he bringin' rain to dry roots." That line caught fire instantly. #Dry Roots trended within hours. Snoop continued, and Ronald, that's the big homie. Legend, no disrespect. But sometimes the young ones see what we refuse to. Kendrick ain't come to tear down, he came to uncover. Big difference. Boom, respectful, but firm. The next day, Ronald's team dropped an official statement. It wasn't hostile, but it was controlled. The statement read, Mr. Isley respects the artistry and intentions of Mr. Lamar. However, certain personal matters should remain private. We encourage the public to focus on the music, not speculation. Fans weren't having it. Speculation was the music now. Every bar Kendrick ever spit was being reanalyzed in a whole new light. Like, was that line in Father Time really about Ronald? Did that whisper on the Mr. Morale outro? The silence been broken? Mean this silence. Even lyrics from Section 80 were being re-examined with theories so deep, you'd think folks had PhDs in conspiracy. And then, out of nowhere, Beyonce slid into the narrative. Not on purpose, but by pure association. See, Beyonce had worked with Ronald on Elements of Soul, a private tribute project still unreleased, recorded during the pandemic. The two shared a deep musical bond, and Beyonce has always spoken highly of the Isleys as major influences. But she also happens to be close with Kendrick. Very close. The freedom, collaboration, legendary. Their backstage energy, unmatched. So when Bey dropped a cryptic photo on her website showing a vinyl titled Unfiltered Blood beside a vintage Isley Brothers record, the internet erupted. No caption, no date, just the image. Raw, intentional. Was it support? A warning? A tease of a future project? Nobody knew. But one thing was clear. The walls between the old guard and the new wave were starting to crack. By now, it wasn't even just a Kendrick versus Isley thing. It became symbolic. This story started touching every part of the Black musical lineage. It made Marvin Gaye's family speak out, saying Marvin once kept a journal that talked about the burden of being a voice, but having no one to listen. It made Anita Baker tweet, "Secrets ain't sins, but silence can be." She deleted that tweet an hour later. Even Quincy Jones spoke in an interview, cryptically saying, "Some of these old heads got cobwebs in their closets. It's good the young ones are dusting them off. Keeps the air fresh." Meanwhile, Kendrick's silence continued, but in typical Kendrick fashion, that silence spoke louder than most artists' whole albums. Then came the leak. A 45-second snippet surfaced from what appeared to be another collab, this one even more raw. No beat, no chorus, just Kendrick speaking softly over a faint guitar strum. "If I'm the seed, who buried me? If I bloom in truth, who planted the lie? If your name is my silence, I've been shoutin' your absence since 85. Y'all, that line? Since 85, that was the same year Ronald Isley reportedly lost contact with a woman named Denise Turner, a backup singer who, according to some now public court documents, once filed a paternity suit that mysteriously vanished from the record. Suddenly, everyone wanted answers. Not just fans, journalists, lawyers, music historians. This wasn't just drama now, this was legacy litigation. And it wasn't just Kendrick and Ronald who were impacted. The Isley family found themselves fractured. Some cousins started choosing sides. One source close to the family said the Christmas gathering in St. Louis turned into a full-blown shouting match after someone played Kendrick's Bloodline Confessions during dinner. Ronald reportedly left early. Ernie stayed silent. Monique didn't show up. Another relative allegedly called Ronald a coward with a choir robe. That quote got picked up by the Shade Room, and within hours, it was turned into a diss track by an underground Memphis rapper named Lil O. Titled Choir Robe Cowboy. You can't make this up. And just when you thought it couldn't get any messier, Ronald's old collaborator, yes, R. Kelly, tried to chime in from prison via collect call to a podcaster, saying, "Tell Ron I know what he hidden." That clip, it leaked. The podcast got shut down. The call allegedly terminated mid-sentence. The streets were in flames. Meanwhile, back on the music front, Kendrick's TDE camp began cryptically teasing something titled Family Ties Uncut. Some said it was an album. Others thought it was a documentary. All TDE posted was a black screen with white text. "Truth is louder when it hurts." No date, no rollout, just that. And then came Tiny Desk. Y'all know Kendrick don't do Tiny Desk. But when NPR announced a special unlisted performance from a Pulitzer-winning West Coast voice, fans knew. And when it dropped, boy, Kendrick sat surrounded by strings, a single saxophonist, and 2 background vocalists. He performed unreleased pieces, spoken word style. And near the end, he looked dead into the camera and said, "To those who made me by accident or silence, I forgive you, but don't confuse my forgiveness for forgettin'. The truth don't knock, it walks in." Mic down, fade out, no applause, just silence. The internet imploded. Twitter was ground zero. TikTok edits went viral. Emotional reaction videos from fans crying in their car flooded YouTube. One fan said, "This ain't music no more. This is ancestral healing through Wi-Fi." People were moved, hurt, exposed, inspired. Even Ronald himself, according to sources, watched the tiny desk 3 times. Alone, no comments, no repost, just reflection. Someone close to Ronald told a blog, "He ain't mad no more, he just tired." Kendrick opened wounds he ain't even know still bled. And perhaps that was Kendrick's point all along. See, this wasn't about tearing Ronald down. It was about revealing that the architects of Black excellence are still human. That behind the satin suits and platinum records, there were broken fathers, silenced mothers, forgotten children, and unspoken pain. Kendrick just did what no one else dared to. He said it out loud. He used the mic not just as an instrument, but as an intervention. And now the question is, where do they go from here? Because the world is still watching. The fans are still connecting the dots. The family is still divided. But the music is louder than ever. And somewhere in all of this chaos, pain, and history, Kendrick and Ronald changed each other. Forever. By the time January rolled around, the music industry wasn't just watching Ronald Isley and Kendrick Lamar, it was obsessing. Behind closed doors, execs at Sony, Universal, even Netflix were scrambling. What started as a private studio session had turned into the biggest unscripted saga in modern music history. But what no one expected was the next twist. And it came not from Ronald, not from Kendrick, but from a lost voice connected to both of them. Her name, Denise Turner, the same Denise rumored to have once filed a secret paternity suit in the 80s. The same woman whose name had surfaced in Kendrick's leaked bar about Truth that vanished in '85. Out of nowhere, Denise stepped into the spotlight on her own terms. She released a YouTube video, simply titled To the One They Never Claimed. No flashy graphics, no sponsors. Just Denise, now in her 60s, sitting in a sunlit room, eyes full of peace. But her words, heavy. "I ain't here to start trouble," she began softly, "but I've watched this drama unfold from the shadows for too long, and I think it's time y'all heard it from me." She went on to tell her truth. Back in 1984, she toured briefly with the Isley brothers as a backup vocalist. She and Ronald had a private, short-lived relationship, never public. She never wanted fame, she just wanted clarity. Denise claimed she discovered she was pregnant just months after their affair ended. She said she wrote Ronald multiple letters, called his management, got ignored. "I wasn't trying to trap a man," she said. "I just wanted my son to know where he came from." Then she dropped the bomb. "My son's name isn't Kendrick Lamar, but I raised him in Compton, and he's one of Kendrick's closest friends. Grew up with him, laughed with him, shared pain with him. I think that's why Kendrick took this so personal, because he lived the confusion I went through." Fans were shook. This wasn't just about Kendrick doing a deep dive on his own family. This was him carrying the pain of a friend who grew up fatherless, maybe because of Ronald's silence. Denise's video went nuclear. Millions of views in 48 hours. It hit every blog, every hip-hop podcast, even national news. Charlamagne called it one of the most honest things I've ever watched on the internet. Questlove reposted it with the caption, "This is what happens when music confronts memory." And just like that, the entire narrative shifted. This wasn't some long-lost son scandal like fans had speculated. This was something bigger. This was Kendrick taking on the role of messenger for the voiceless. His friend had suffered, his family torn, and Kendrick, always the observer, had stepped into the fire to force accountability, not just from Ronald, but from a system of silence. And then came the next move, a leaked studio track, titled Sins of the Session. No label release, no credits, just a Dropbox link tweeted by an anonymous account named The Third Verse. The file, a haunting duet between Ronald and Kendrick. Yes, you read that right. Ronald Isley, Kendrick Lamar on the same track, It was raw, unmixed, but powerful beyond measure. Ronald opened in a whisper. I heard echoes in the booth that sounded like regret wrapped in youth. You looked at me like a mirror I ain't clean in decades. Kendrick followed, voice low, layered over a soft church organ. I didn't come to curse you, I came to close the loop for all the suns raised by silence and truths buried under suits. They didn't trade bars, they spoke to each other. It wasn't a diss track. It was a conversation. A cleansing, a confrontation. The final lines, straight poetry. Ronald, I ain't perfect. Never claimed the crown of honesty, but if this mic can heal, then maybe this verse is my apology. Kendrick, the blood ain't mine, but the hurt is familiar, and maybe we both needed this booth to forgive us. The internet didn't even react with chaos this time. It reacted with silence. Comments were disabled. Blogs refused to post snippets out of respect. Twitter barely joked, because for once everyone agreed this was a moment. Sacred, unfiltered, generational therapy captured on wax. And for the first time in months, Ronald Isley was spotted smiling. TMZ caught him exiting a restaurant in Beverly Hills with his arm around a young man who fans identified as Jamal Reynolds, the same dude who once claimed to be Kendrick's cousin on IG. Rumors swirled that Ronald had privately reconnected with Denise Turner. Some sources even said they were in preliminary discussions about starting a foundation for underserved Black youth impacted by fatherlessness, possibly with Kendrick as a silent partner. But while things looked like they were healing behind the scenes, not everyone was ready to let go. Enter Monique Isley. Remember her, the Denise Turner catalog manager who allegedly set up the original Kendrick Ronald session. Well, Monique was fed up, and she made sure the world knew. She dropped a 40-minute tell-all IG live called Don't Paint Me the Villain. She went in. I ain't no snake, she said. I ain't no traitor. I didn't betray family, I protected legacy. I knew Kendrick wasn't gonna come with just a beat. He was bringing the truth, and I thought my uncle was ready. Monique accused Ronald of years of avoiding real conversations. She claimed there were multiple secret children known within the family but never acknowledged. She said, this ain't the first Kendrick, and sadly, it probably won't be the last. Fans were torn, some applauded her bravery, others dragged her for airing family business for clout. But one thing was undeniable, her words hit home, because her final statement was cold. You can write love songs for 50 years, but if your own blood don't know you loved them, what's it worth? Fire broken. That clip alone got reposted by over 500 accounts. Even Kanye West liked the video, then unliked it hours later. And amidst all this noise, Kendrick, still silent, still no statement, no post. But then an update came from his camp through Punch from TDE. In a short interview with Rap Caviar, Punch said, Kendrick ain't trying to hurt nobody. He's just trying to free people, including himself. He added, this wasn't even supposed to go public, but once it did, the universe took it from there. And that might be the most powerful part of this whole story. Kendrick never planned for this to be a viral moment. He never wanted a headline, a scandal, or a gotcha narrative. He walked into that studio to speak truth, and the world just happened to start listening. So now we sit here, months later, in the middle of the biggest real fake music story to ever hit the culture, and we're left with more than just theories or gossip. We're left with questions. What does legacy mean if it's built on silence? Can healing happen between generations? When the pain has echoes, is Kendrick Lamar just a rapper, or is he something more? And most importantly, will this moment change the way artists tell their truth forever? Because if Kendrick can bring one of the most private R&B legends in the game to his knees with nothing but paper, poetry, and purpose, what's stopping the next generation from holding their heroes accountable? This story isn't just music, it's medicine, and we still don't know the full dosage. Hugh, y'all still breathing? Because that right there wasn't just a story, it was a whole emotional roller coaster with no seatbelt. Ronald Isley and Kendrick Lamar just gave us something deeper than drama, more powerful than a collab. They gave us a look into the heart of legacy, truth, and what happens when the music stops and the real stories begin. But now it's on you. Do you think Kendrick went too far bringing private family matters into the booth? Or was he right to confront generational silence head-on? Is Ronald a legend who deserves his privacy, or does truth have no expiration date, no matter how iconic the name? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story has the culture split right down the middle. Are you team Mr. Biggs, or do you stand with Kendrick, the lyrical therapist of our time? Make sure you like this video if you felt even one line hit you deep. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss part 2 of the saga, cause we hear there's more unreleased audio, and let's just say, somebody's about to get exposed again eyes. And don't forget to share this video with that one friend who loves messy music drama and deep truths. Trust, they gone, thank you later. This ain't just news, this is culture in real time. Stay tapped in, stay woke, and stay ready. Cause when Kendrick speaks again, the whole world's gonna listen.